Not gonna lie y'all, this is the hardest script I've ever written for a video. Obviously that isn't saying a lot since I don't exactly have many videos, but still. This is the most controversial Star Wars has ever been since The Last Jedi, hence the title. At first, I want to talk about all the strengths of Kenobi that mostly counteract some of the criticism I've seen of the show. But now, looking deep into the criticism of the show, and seeing everyone's outlook on the series as a whole, I had to change the structure of this video entirely. Now, I'm going to say this now. For my personal opinion alone, Kenobi is amazing. It's not perfect, not in the slightest. The direction of the show has made every episode for me go down a point. That's just one of the problems I have with the show. But I think the most important thing is to appreciate the highs of Kenobi while acknowledging the lows of it. If you retroactively hate this show and think it's the worst thing Star Wars has ever put out, that's fine. I cannot stress how much people are allowed to have their own opinions. With that being said, this is all my opinion on Kenobi because looking at the show from a purely objective standpoint is nigh impossible. Before I get started, there's going to be spoilers for Kenobi, so skip to whatever time frame I awkwardly throw on screen for my spoiler-free thoughts. With that out of the way, let's talk about something obvious about Kenobi that's universally hated upon.
What chase after scraps?
Scraps are all we have left.
Then we should be hunting bigger prey.
He is not yours to find. We are past this, third sister. I will not warn you again.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
Oh wait, shit, sorry, wrong example. Could you imagine blindly hating a character because they are presented differently than what you were expecting? For real, let's talk about the thing that is objectively bad. That being the directing. I don't think I need to explain it to y'all. The directing is absolutely abysmal. I will go and say this now that this isn't entirely the crew's fault. Kathleen Kennedy had a lot of creative input on a lot of things that was supposed to be in Kenobi, but she decided not to for some reason because she didn't want to make it look or feel cinematic for a TV show. Because obviously that isn't something that's been done in the past before. Seriously, she cut the remix for Duel of the Fates and Battle of Heroes from the show because of the stupid idea to make it feel more like a small-scale TV show. Kenobi, the show where Darth Vader and Kenobi reunite and fight again. I don't know, I have no problem with her being in charge of Star Wars and where she wants franchise headed, but she seriously should now this one's control of Star Wars TV shows in the future because he actively made the show look god-awful. And sideline a lot of Ewan McGregor's decisions, even though he was the executive producer of the show. The most notable thing wrong about the directing was the shaky camera. Shaky cam is never a good sign in really any Star Wars content because it never fits the atmosphere and environment of Star Wars as a whole. I was so excited to see that Deborah Chow directed Kenobi because how great her directing was in The Mandalorian, but then you find out that they are two distinctly different shows that have very different tones, action set pieces, and atmospheres. So it works fine for The Mandalorian, but that's because it's appealing to a more western style of genre for Star Wars. Here, the direction style doesn't work for a more traditional Star Wars adventure genre. The same can also be said for the sets. The sets are absolutely bland and don't have much to offer. Originally, this wasn't something I thought about until I looked more into full-fledged video on Kenobi. It really opened my eyes to how uninspired and wooden the sets are. I do highly recommend you check out this video because I do agree with a lot of its general points of the show, to an extent. The duels between Obi-Wan and Vader are both great to see, but I just really wish that I could have seen more environment be used more often in episode 3. They fixed this problem in the finale, but my main issue is that they both took place as rocky, open areas. And that's my main issue with the sets of the show. There was this rocky, barren wastelands for a good 2/3 of the show. The only real diversity of the setting is the infiltration of the Inquisitor's base. But here's the thing, almost everything except the setting is wrong with this episode, because it has such a poor and filler-esque story that was really only justified by Kenobi getting more attuned with the Force. Because, well, that's the best thing about the show, Kenobi himself. You'd think that'd be a no-brainer that the main character of their own series will be the main focus and the best part, but we live in a post-Book of Boba Fett era, so you never know. All the stuff revolving around the characters and their writing is something truly amazing. You see a more broken and washed-up Obi-Wan, similar to Luke in The Last Jedi. But here, his reasonings and derailment from what he was before is far better executed. Kenobi had to murder the closest thing he had to a brother, feeling he had failed him and everyone around him. It is genuinely heartbreaking in the first episode where you see essentially the same shots of Kenobi living his life. Taking the bus, doing work, feeding his camel. You see this 3 separate times and it gets harder to watch. It really does emphasize that Kenobi isn't living, he's surviving. He has lost all purpose and meaning to continue fighting for peace, even when that thing has been put into question multiple times. It's not until Bail Organa practically forces him to go save Leia when he actually decides to go. And I think it's a really great direction to take the series. Now, I've seen people talk about how they wanted to see a slower pace, more grounded Soarin Kenobi simply living on Tatooine, hiding from the Inquisitors, but that is taking the easy way out. Just seeing Kenobi on Tatooine for 6 episodes really would have made the concepts that we already have about Kenobi struggles get really repetitive and really tired really fast. The good thing about the story being focused on saving Leia, but also about the conflict between Inquisitors and Vader, is that it makes all the struggles with Kenobi feel fresh. It's better laid out because we get to see the story progress about saving Leia while Kenobi is afraid of facing Vader, or the conflict between him and Reva, making all the internal struggles Kenobi faces come more naturally and organically. Kenobi at first just wanted to go save Leia and leave immediately because he wants to go back to being afraid, but it's not until he sees the resistance and people who have fought against the Empire that he realizes that it's not about forgetting the past. It's about fighting for a better future. That could have never organically happened if we didn't see Kenobi almost forcibly go to save Leia, someone who wasn't even his responsibility to begin with.
I can't leave here, Bale. My duty is to the boy.
What about your duty to his sister? She's as important as he is.
The interaction with him and Leia are also great because it shows just how vulnerable Obi-Wan is, as opposed to how hopeful Leia is. How Leia is such a fighter, adventurous, and also kind, while Kenobi is hopeless and doesn't believe this fight is worth fighting for.
Once a great Jedi. The time of the Jedi is over.
It's a very wholesome dynamic that works well for setting up Kenobi's growth towards the end of the series. Even with Reva, the parallels between him and Reva make Kenobi see just how much he is trapping himself. Reva, someone who is so traumatized about her past, being so haunted by her guilt and being unable to save her family, that she retroactively tries to kill Vader by capturing Obi-Wan. Someone who had failed in her mission and became so irrationally upset at herself that she tried to kill Luke to try and justify her failures and make herself believe that she isn't weak. Someone who couldn't move on. Just like Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan couldn't move past his own failures, having believed that he failed Anakin to the point where he finds no purpose in his life anymore. But after seeing the Resistance, Leia, and Reva, he now believes that there is a future to look towards. Leia, Luke, because that's what this is about.
Not fighting what we hate. Saving what we
I can't finish that. I can't take that seriously. That's why Obi-Wan leading Vader to him feels so rewarded, because he has learned that this isn't just about saving himself from exposure. And my god, the transformation Kenobi goes from episode 3 to 6 is immaculate. From being so afraid to face Vader again, to face his own failures and his own regrets that he does whatever he can to run away from Vader, to episode 4 where he starts to become more connected to the Force once again, because he slowly learned that he can't escape Vader. He's going to have to face him again. Now episode 4 isn't great. There's a lot of very dumb things, underdeveloped stuff, like the stupid ass fan service moment where the Inquisitor castle is a tomb. But the only saving grace is just how much Kenobi grows and more attuned to the Force. We can see Kenobi's attacks are very clunky and sloppy, but the more he fights, the more his strength and confidence start to come back. He is letting the Force flow through him naturally until he's able to clear the hallway and save Leia. Now that his physical strength is back, it was time for the finale. My god, the finale, where he finally faces Vader even though he doesn't want to kill Anakin, as established in episode 5.
Why would I ever trust you?
Because we want the same thing.
Do we, Obi-Wan? Do you really want Anakin dead?
But he will do what he must.
Then you will die.
The fight between Vader and Obi-Wan is fantastic, using the environment around them more, with much better choreography and usage of the Force. Obi-Wan pulling himself out of the rubble to going fucking nuts on Vader, it's all fantastic. And when he breaks open Vader's helmet and sees Anakin's face, I'm not gonna lie, tears were shed. Seeing Obi-Wan profusely apologetic and saying how sorry he was for everything he has done. And we see Anakin's pull to light side very briefly start to show, while still being somewhat evil from his influence Vader has on Anakin. And Anakin says that this wasn't his fault. It was his own fault. It was Vader's fault.
You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did.
Vader killed Anakin. And finally, everything Kenobi has gone through, from being physically ready to fight Vader, to emotionally understanding that I can't cling to his past any longer, he finally accepts the truth. that Anakin is gone. But it's not his fault. He can now look towards a brighter future. Both him and Reva, with Reva making the conscious choice to not kill Luke, having to see the more ambiguity of her violent actions. They are both free. And absolutely none of this would have been executed as well as it did if we didn't have some good fucking actors. Ewan McGregor is obviously astounding here, pouring his heart out into a role he is in love with. But really, everybody did a great job acting. Moises Ingram as Reva, Vivian Blair as Leia, which weirdly grew on me even though she was first seen as an annoying rebellious kid. Even Joel Edgerton as Uncle Owen grew on me because you could really see where he was coming from.
You really love the boy. Like he's your own.
He is my own.
Of course he wouldn't like Obi-Wan and trust him, why would he? But I love how he gave him a chance and actually decided that Obi-Wan can talk to Luke. That was a sweet moment. Aunt Beru is also a very fun addition and she is an absolute badass as she keeps firing Reva. You can really tell that every actor, from minor roles to big parts, are pouring their hearts out into their characters. And honestly, that's what makes this show stand out. The acting really does balance out the very poor directing. Though, I think my main complaint about this is just a disservice hating Kristen Guy's Anakin. Don't get me wrong, he does an amazing job as Anakin in the flashbacks of episode 5 and where his face is revealed in episode 6. I just think that he could have been used more. Being used in 2 out of the 6 episodes where it's very clear it is Hayden just doesn't work for me. He did such an amazing job at portraying Anakin and Vader episode 5, showing his flaws as a Padawan and his need to prove himself and seeing how those same flaws are still present when he has turned to the dark side. But I wish more of Hayden himself as Anakin was shown more. Seeing more flashback sequences of him would have been great. But I still love what they did with Vader, always constantly wanting for a victory as he does a Padawan, clinging to his revenge on Kenobi.
You're a great warrior, Anakin. But you'll need to prove yourself as your undoing. Until you overcome it, a Padawan you will still be.
There, now you can all stop talking about how Vader and Kenobi meeting again is canon breaking. Seriously, just let the story play out and don't write your Rotten Tomato reviews 3 episodes into the show. Vader is the best he has ever been in the show. Not just because he's menacing, but also because his hunt for Kenobi ties in so well to not just who Anakin was, but also the main message of the show. And that is letting go of the past. Obi-Wan, Reva, even Vader, they all were clinging to the past, but just from vastly different perspectives. Having the finale end with all of them growing past their own personal struggles was a perfect way to tie up the series. Obi-Wan grew from his guilt of failing Anakin. Reva grew past the trauma of watching a fellow younglings die. Vader grew past his vengeance on Kenobi, now only focusing on serving Palpatine. Also, I love seeing Ian McDiarmid again, but yikes, I think he's just getting too old to play Sidious now, I'm sorry. And man, seeing Qui-Gon at the very end of the series, now that Kenobi's arc is fully complete, is something truly special. Yes, I really would prefer he said at least something about Anakin, but I appreciate what Qui-Gon said, that he wasn't ready to see Qui-Gon yet. It's also a nice callback to this quote.
Only when the eyes are closed can you truly see.
This finale was, in my opinion, the best Disney Plus show finale we have ever gotten, even if it is a little fanservice heavy.
Hello there.
He said it! He said it!
I personally don't mind it, as most of it is just some fun little callbacks, but I can see how it can come off as annoying. Even so, both episodes 5 and 6 really did save whatever hope I had lost for the show after episode 4. Did the show need to exist? No, not at all. But realistically, Kenobi doesn't need to exist in the same way that Clone Wars doesn't need to exist, or the prequel trilogy. None of these sets of media that are prequels to the original trilogy don't need to exist. You can honestly piece the puzzle yourself on the destination, but it's a tale as old as time. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It's not about getting to Order 66 in Clone Wars. It's about the humanization of the clones and the journey the Jedi went through to get to Order 66. It's not about getting to Anakin becoming Vader. It's about the downfall of Anakin and his reasons as to why he turned into Vader. To see how hopeful and full of light he was, only for his compassion for others to be his own downfall of being pulled towards the dark side. It's not about Obi-Wan still being on Tatooine for A New Hope. It's about adding more depth to some well-beloved characters. Seeing how vulnerable and at his lowest Kenobi was and going through his journey to becoming more wise and hopeful for Luke's future, in contrast to Vader being at his prime on the hunt for Obi-Wan. For example, in episode 3, we got to see Kenobi reminisce on his life before the council, how he had memories of his family but only very vague before being taken away that weirdly nobody seems to talk about.
Flash is reading my mother's shawl. My father's hands. I think I had a brother. I really don't remember him.
This is by far the best example as to why prequel media exists, to add more depth than we have ever seen these characters. Clone Wars didn't even do this for Obi-Wan. This didn't need to happen, but it did for the sake of making you fall in love with this character, to understand more about Obi-Wan, about Leia, about Vader. Obi-Wan is a show with some very solid story structure with exceptional character writing, but some very poor direction and some missed opportunities here and there. But I have to give the show some benefit of the doubt, because we still have amazing moments despite how troubled the production for the show was. Okay, so like immediately after I was about to be finished editing, apparently the Kenobi series was going to be a trilogy, but for some reason, because apparently Solo didn't do well, they wanted to make the Kenobi series a show, and it had almost nothing to do with the original trilogy the writer had planned out. I don't know, this is why you should just let writers do their work. Like, let writers do writing. 8 out of 10. Lastly, I am in no way discrediting any of the criticism the show has gotten. Well, all the real ones anyways. But personally, I feel like some of the things that have just been greatly exaggerated and mainly talk about the lows rather than discussing the highs of the show. So I tried to do a little bit of both. But again, this is all my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's completely fine. I've come to accept that I have a much more positive outlook on movies and TV shows. But even so, the one thing that I hope is that this doesn't turn into The Last Jedi again, dividing the fan base entirely, and people can just agree to disagree. But then again, this is the internet, so there's no way it's gonna happen. Thank you all so much for watching. I really love this show, and I really had to look back on how I was going to approach this video given the negative feedback to the series as a whole. If you liked this video, be sure to tell me what your thoughts are on Kenobi or my critique of it. Be sure to subscribe and hit the little notification bell to get notified when future content releases. It's free and you can always subscribe later. I'm your favorite Cowboy, signing off.